When stacking hair, generally a tool is used. It can be done in the palm of your hand. Just simply take the hair and just let it kind of fall down to the palm of your hand. Readjust your fingers, and you just keep working it down until you get it even, as long as you've removed the underfur with a comb or a brush or something to get it out of there. But you can work it down. It will stack to some degree. In fact, you can see the other end now is pretty uneven. It was dead even when I cut it off. So you can get fairly even, but it's so much easier with a tool. And what I want to do is discuss some of those tools. I have no idea how quickly people discovered that trying to stack in hand was not an efficient way of doing it. People came up with all kinds of different designs. This happens to be a hair stacking trough, whatever, I guess that's the name I'll call it. This was owned by Darwin Atkin. He gave this one to me. And that's, you just lay the hair in here and you tap it down and you roll your finger into it and pull the hair out. Unluckily, oftentimes it'll unstack when you do that. So, but it's an option, and it's a tool. This must be at least 50 years old. Another tool that you might consider, although I wouldn't highly recommend it in plastic, believe it or not, it's a chapstick tube. It has just about the right distance of the male into the female to stack small hair or hackle barbs or guard hairs on muskrat, that sort of thing. Except the plastic is not great because it causes static. If you can find an old metal chapstick tube, they work reasonably well. Take the end off, put the hair in this end if you want, or put the hair in this end, put it together, and it'll stack back down. Not highly recommended, but it's an option. Let's look at probably the most common tool used. Most all fly tyers will recognize this as an open-end stacker. It's the most common stacker that you're going to see for stacking hair. I'm not real fond of open-end stackers. This was made by Ed Gossel. It's a beautiful tool. It's made out of walnut. Most are made out of aluminum or brass. They generally come in different sizes, and we'll discuss the different sizes here in a little bit and the reasons for them. But one of the things that I wanted to point out was why I don't like this tool. And the reason I don't is when you take a clump of hair and you put it in, you have to kind of manipulate it around, oftentimes if it's not evenly stacked, to get it to all go in. Well, a better way perhaps of doing it is the one end that is even is the cut end, and you can put that in this end of the stacker, but then you have to be careful that it doesn't fall out the other end. So tap it on through and then put it together, and then you can make your stack. But I'd like to show you a different design of a tool to consider. Jordan Lagman came up with this particular tool, and this tool I've tied probably thousands of flies with. It's a great tool. It has some disadvantages though. First of all, it rolls. It doesn't set upright well. It's easily knocked over, and if it lays on your table, it rolls. Also, the depth of the throw here doesn't change, and I'd like to be able to change it for different lengths of hair. For instance, if I was using short hair, some guard hairs or something, when I pull it out, they simply would fall out because the bottom of the female piece down here is way down here, so hair would easily fall out. The thing I like about it is when Jordan Lagman designed what he calls his laggy stacker, he made it a closed-end stacker. This top end is closed. You put the hair in the bottom here. Let me demonstrate how it's done. The one end that you can rely on being even is not the tips, but the butts where you've cut them off. It's so easy to take the hair, simply drop it into the stacker, put the cap on, tap the hair down, and it's stacked. I really like closed-end stackers. There's another advantage, and that is if you have hair that's fairly long, it's got quite a bit of distance here, but also if you have hair that's fairly long and you're stacking, it's not going to fly out the top when you're stacking. It stays inside of it. You can actually pound it pretty viciously. Well, it's not going anywhere. So that's another reason I like this tool, but it needed some help. It needed a redesign. In talking with Jarle Christensen in Norway one time, I mentioned that I was interested in a tool for hair stacking that allowed me to change the depth of this male into the female piece, also a tool that wouldn't roll off the table. Well, he said, my dad works as a private citizen for the military as a machinist, and he could probably make a tool for you like you're interested in. And I said, great. And he said, would it be okay if he makes it out of titanium? And I said, sure, platinum, titanium, didn't matter to me. He made it so tight, though, such a tight fit, that it's like an air shock holding onto this little hole here. So it's so tight that when you pull the cap off, listen, it would actually unstack the hair. Great little tool, gorgeous tool. I cherish it, but it wasn't quite right. A year later, Steve Fernandez went to Norway and met Jarle, and they came up with this design. Now, Steven has one that's made out of titanium, but this is one that Jarle's dad made out of brass. And with the hexes, it's not going to roll off onto the floor, and it still has the adjustment where I can screw in and screw out this piece to accommodate different sizes of hair. The advantage is, like so many open-end stackers that I see that come in 4 different sizes, you don't need 4 different sizes. Unless you're using a massive amount of hair, you can stack anything in this, from very small hackle barbs to a big chunk of bucktail, and it'll stack beautifully. Again, you don't need a bunch of different tools, but we decided to make it more commercially available, and that brought in a couple of other tools. A friend, Scott Stisser, that lived close by, came up with this design, and it also has the adjustment so you can screw in and out this piece to accommodate different lengths of hair, and it won't roll off and fall onto the floor. I've tied thousands of flies with this tool. Just taps down, closed-in stacker, works great. It's a neat little tool. And then Joe LeBou came up with a slightly different one, just not a lot different. Let me show you what this one looks like. He decided that he would put in a cap in the end so that you could pop the cap off. For those who are really dedicated to an open-end stacker, this is removable. But again, it's a very fine tool. It has the adjustments, very smooth operation, so you can screw this in and out to accommodate different lengths of hair. So for however long you want that male piece to descend down into the cap like so, you can accommodate for that. All these last 3 tools are fantastic. I use them all the time. I would highly recommend this design of closed-in stacker, in my preference, over the fluted end stackers that most people tie with. I feel that this really has a lot of advantages.